Hello everybody, this is Professor West. Welcome back to C# programming tutorials. As I mentioned, I've created these for my students, but I'm sharing them for everybody in case anybody else would like to learn programming. Last week, in the last segment, I guess, we dealt with switch statements, also called case statements. I have an example still on my screen here of one of the ones that we worked on. As you can see, a little refresher here. We outputted, do you like it, yes, no, or maybe. And then we did a readline statement to accept whatever they enter and then store it to a string called input. We then told it to convert whatever they entered, yes, no, or maybe, all into lowercase using this command here. And then in the switch statement, we compared it. If they entered yes or maybe, then it would run this line. If they entered no, then it would run this line. And then we have the default. So, as you probably remember, we went through and it ran one time and then the program ended. This week, we're going to talk about loops. A loop does exactly what it sounds like. It just runs a set of code over and over and over until some condition is met. That's all it does. So, we have several different kinds of loops that we can choose from. We have a while loop, a do while loop, a for loop. Some languages have even more than that. We also have a for each loop, but we're not going to get into that one right now. Today we're going to focus on the while, the do while, and the for loops. And they're very simple. Let's do one right now. I'm going to take this code that we worked on last week. If you don't still have it, you might want to pause this video and copy it real quick. But I'm going to take this and I'm going to create an integer. Number equals, I'm going to set it to 0. And then I'm going to use the while command, and I'm going to put number is less than 5. And just like what we did before, I'm going to have an open brace. This is going to be for my while loop. And then when I want the loop to end, I'll have the corresponding closing brace. Now let me go in and add a couple comments real quick. Open the while loop. Closes the while loop. Remember when I told you that all these different braces can start to get confusing? Closes the switch statement. Opens the switch statement. This will help because now whenever you're looking at your code, you'll be able to actually see, oh wait, here's where this loop ends. So what's going to happen is I have a variable called number. It's set to 0. It's going to come down and compare just like it did with the if statement. This part here works exactly the same as the if statement. It's going to say if number is less than 5. If it's true, then it's going to run this next portion. When it gets to the end, it's simply going to come back and perform the test again. And it'll do that over and over and over until it's false. So one thing that we have to do here is we have to add one more line down here before it loops that tells it number needs to be incremented. This number plus plus just simply tells it whatever number is, it's going to add 1 to it. So if number was 2, now it would be 3. If it's 4, now it would be 5. So that's all this is going to do, and it's going to loop through here 5 times. Let's perform a test now and run it. Are you enjoying the videos? Yes, no, or maybe. Let's do yes. As we said, it converted it to lowercase, and then it ran it. Glad to hear it. Are you enjoying the videos? Yes. Glad to hear it. Are you enjoying the videos? No. Oh no, I'll have to make some changes. Are you enjoying the videos? No. Okay. And let's do yes again. Great. Now notice that after the 5th time, I came up with the press any key to exit. This is the end of the loop. Just like we've done many times, it came up with the code to exit the entire console application. So, as you can see, there's very little to actually do in a loop. We only had to have one line of code that created the variable, one line that created the loop, the braces, and something to increment. That's it, guys. Now let me talk to you about another loop called a do while loop. Let me point one last thing out with this while loop. When it comes through, it performs the test. If this had already been 5, let's say I set number equals 10, what would happen here? Number less than 5. It would have been no. This part of the code would have never ran, ever, because this is already greater than this number here. If we do a do while loop, we change that a little bit. Let me readjust a little bit. The only difference between a do while loop is we have the word do at the beginning, and then at the very end we have the while condition and a semicolon. Now what happens with this in this case is when it gets here, notice there's no test at the beginning. So it's going to run this code every single time. It's going to run this code one time before we ever get to the test. So if you know that you want this code to run at least one time, then you would use a do while loop instead of a while loop. If there's a chance you might not want the code to run, then you would use a while loop instead of the do while. I know that sounds a little confusing, but you'll have to play around with it and see. But let's test it. Are you enjoying it? Yes. Glad to hear it. Yes. No. No. Ooh. Maybe. And after the 5th time it exits. Exactly like it did before. The only difference was we moved the condition, the test, to the end. So, as I said, with the do loop, this code will all run one time, even if I set this to 10. Let's try it. Are you enjoying the classes? Yes. Glad to hear it. Press any key to exit. With the while statement, it would not have ran. The last loop that I want to talk about today is a for loop. For loops are a little bit different. We do a for loop when we already know how many times we want the code to run. So let me comment this out. So we'll still have it, but I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to create a for loop. To do a for loop, you use the word for, of course. Then you create your variable, int. We often call it I in a for loop. Pretty much everybody does it, so it's easily recognizable. Count is also very popular, or counter. We put a semicolon, and then we put the test. I is less than number. And then okay. You know what? I'll just add it back in here. It didn't like that I didn't have anything for number. Let's do that. Okay. I is less than number, semicolon, and then I plus plus. These are the 3 parts of the for loop. This first section only runs the first time the loop runs. It initializes a variable called I, it creates it, that's an integer, and sets it equal to 0. The next portion is the condition. It's going to run every time the loop runs, just like the while loop and the do while loop. And then the incrementation. We don't have to have it in the code, because we have it here. So let's do our braces. Anything that I want to happen in here, for now I'll do a simple right line statement that's simply going to output the value of I. So as we run this, let's see what happens. It outputted 0 because I was 0. Then it looped back up. It added 1 to I, which made I 1, and then it performed the test. Is it less than? Yes, it is. Okay, then run this line of code again. Increment and run, increment and run. And it does that every time until it gets to the end. This is especially helpful if you know that you have like a lot to run. Sometimes you may have 100 or 1,000 that you may need. This for loops are used to retrieve files or lines of code from files, or data from databases, or all kinds of things. So anyway, you can consult your book for more things, but this is a very simple loop, and that's all there is to it. You can put this code around anything, any program that you're doing, just like you can this other while statement, just like I put it around this. You can put it in your entire program and say, oh, at the end of the program, do you want to run the program or do you want to quit? You can do it however you want. It's just something that you're going to have to play around with and get used to. And as I mentioned, there's one more loop called a for each loop, but I'm going to hold off on those until we get to arrays in I think the next segment. And until then, I hope you're enjoying this. Don't forget to practice.